Hello, Frog fans. Welcome back to Post Game Beers. I'm your host, Kyle Malloy at Yell MK. We've got my co-host, as always, Jacob Sailors and Martin Guerrero on the pod today. It's officially game week. We are just a short 3 days away from TCU baseball's opening series out in San Diego against the Toreros. So who else to bring on but our favorite skipper, head coach Kirk Saarloos. Coach, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Pretty impressive. I haven't been on the podcast in a while. You guys are really coming up in the world. I mean, you got multiple sponsors. You got, I mean, that's big league, big time. Is that all?
Yeah, they take care of us.
Yeah, I mean, they take care of us from a beverage and snacking perspective. I don't think anyone's making any money off this gig yet, so we still got work to do.
Coach,
are you on here with you?
Are you a sunflower seed guy, Coach?
You know what? When I played, I was. I was. When you're a starting pitcher, you got to figure out something to do with your time, and so I was a big sunflower seed guy, and so I would rip through multiple bags, and then as I got older, I figured out that that's probably not the best thing for my waistline. Is like when you rip down like bag after bag of seeds. So I've figured out other things and gum and other things that are.
If you're looking to supply your whole team for the spring, we know just the people to go to. Chinook Seedery. We can get you 10% off with promo code LDC.
Look at that.
I think he's searching online already. Coach, we're primarily going to focus on, this year, this squad. First, let's put a bow on 2024. So you get the unfortunate news that TCU didn't make the tournament. I imagine that's not only a tough blow, but disappointing to share to the players. So when a season ends like that, it ends off the field, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What's your message to the team at that point?
Well, I mean, that's a tough message to bring to a team that's about to start practice on selection show Monday, and there's not a whole lot you can say. I think, obviously giving them the news and then, it's kind of like a bomb dropped on them. And it's like, that's the bad thing about baseball, any sport, but baseball for sure, because it's also they're not in school and everybody goes their separate ways like the next day, so it's like you're playing and then all of a sudden it's like everybody's going in different directions. So I think the main message to the guys that were coming back, I kind of spoke with them about, hey, remember what this feels like and have the ability to, hit the ground running with this, because the freshman group that's coming in next year is a really big freshman group and it's talented. Mm-hmm. And you've tasted Omaha and now you've tasted not going to a regional. So take that as you will and figure out, okay, what are the things that we liked about the last 2 years and what are the things that we would change now that we're coming back as juniors and so sophomores and juniors. So kind of a motivational deal for them, and they've done a great job with it this whole year.
Yeah, one of my questions off the top was going to be, what are some lessons from, I was going to say last year, but let's expand it, last 2 years. So you mentioned Omaha 2 years ago. Last year missed the tournament. So what lessons do you take away from both of those years and apply them going into 2025?
Well, I think playing your best baseball at the right time. I think we played our best baseball last year at the beginning of the year. And the previous year we played it at the end of the year. And so
right.
I think looking back, I think we as a group, individual or as a team, probably put too much into that 13-0 start in terms of, getting off to the best start in school history as opposed to just taking it one game at a time. I think that took some stuff out of them in terms of trying to, make that run as long as possible. And they were, they did a great job at the beginning of the year. And then at, the middle part of the year, we just got inconsistent and, we pitched all right. We just didn't hit, but I think back to your question, playing your best baseball at the right time. Mm-hmm. I think you're always wanting to peak at the end. And we peaked at the beginning.
Right. Did you guys think y'all did enough last year? Was it a shock to you guys like it was to us?
I feel like we did. After beating Kansas State in the Big 12 tournament, I felt like we were in.
Yeah.
And they had somebody on the committee, which obviously helped them. But we did enough by beating them in the Big 12 tournament to get us in. But once we weren't selected, you can only look to yourself. I wasn't blaming anybody. I was upset that we weren't in because I felt like we had, you have Peyton Tolley, which you feel like is a win once you play anybody in a regional. And as you saw a couple years ago, it just takes 3 good games in a regional and 2 good games in a super, and you're in the World Series. And
you saw what Florida did getting in last.
And we felt like we had an ace in Tolley, where we felt good against anybody. So, but ultimately it came down to us. We didn't win enough games.
Sure.
So I didn't blame anybody. Like when the dust settled, I stuck up for our program and our team, but when the dust settled, we did it to ourselves.
I think we ultimately kind of felt the same. At first we were upset, blaming, and then you kind of turn the finger back and look at the season as a whole and realize there's a couple missed opportunities. 2023, Carson and Tony just came out on an absolute heater. Then they took a slight dip in production last year. Is the sophomore slump, is that a real thing, or is it just come down to the fact that other teams have more footage on these guys?
A little bit of both. And I think a lot of it comes down to trying to live up to what you did in the past, which is a really scary thing to do. I think part of what made them great their freshman year, there was no expectation that it was, man, I just want to help our team win. And then when you have, an All-American status put on you and you had a great freshman year, everyone thinks, oh, your second year is going to be better. And the hardest thing in sports is to compare yourself to either other players or previous seasons, because then you're no longer focusing on the present and what you need to do today. And I think part of that is what happens, and then being able to take a breath and take a step back and understand, okay, why was I really successful my freshman year? Why did I take a step back my sophomore year? And then be able to understand and realize that the things you need to do your junior year. So I'm excited for both those guys to have really great seasons. I'm excited for all of our guys, but you brought up Tony and Carson. So they've had great falls and great springs so far leading up to the season.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I brought them up specifically just because we know they're going to be leaders on the team.
Sure.
Is there anybody else that has stepped up into that position too? Whether it's vocally or maybe just leading by example. Any other guys that we expect to kind of?
Caden Parker. He got drafted in the 11th round and came back, and I wasn't expecting him to come back. I thought he would just sign. That's the normal progression. And he just called me and said, "I'm not ready. I haven't given back to this program what I want to give back to it." And so, he's come back with a lot different mentality and really taken on a big leadership role within the pitching staff, but also with the team. So, like you said, Bo and Silva do a great job of that, and Caden Parker. We have a lot of guys, Cole Klecker, quite a few guys that fit that mold.
So before we completely move on from last year, did we underrate the impact of losing guys in the lineup like Braden Taylor and Cole Fontenelle?
Sure. I think when you have guys that, the middle of your order that leave, it takes the group of guys that maybe weren't, circled on opponents' lineup cards the year before, which now they are. And that carries a lot of weight in terms of, knowing that you're, need to be the guy that produces in the middle of that order. It's like you look at any Major League Baseball team, that you circle a couple guys that, hey, if we're going to have a good season, these guys need to do well. Well, when you're the complementary players to those players, it could be sometimes easier to have really good seasons. But now when you're the circled player, it's a little bit more difficult mentally and just from opponents in terms of what they're trying to, hey, don't let this guy beat you. Don't let this guy beat you. Well, now you're that guy, and you can't lean on, maybe a Braden Taylor or a Cole Fontenelle, and you got to be that guy. And so, sometimes that can be very difficult. But I think the unique thing about baseball is when you have a good offense, it's a very complimentary offense. and I didn't feel like we had that as much consistently last year. And that's obviously one of the things that we like about our lineup this year is I think we have a very complementary lineup that is very deep in terms of 1 through 9.
Nice.
Now, is that primarily due to personnel, or is that also impacted by Coach Mosiello coming back?
Well, I think it's everything. I think it's everything. You have people with a little bit more experience. You have some freshman guys that are very talented. We haven't seen them in a real game yet, but we like what they're capable of doing. And just some versatility all the way through the lineup, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And we feel like, if one guy might not do it that night, it could be the next guy. So I think there's a lot of ability through our lineup 1 through 9 where you're not like, in the perfect world, you're not, well, once you get through the first 5, you're waiting for 6, 7, 8, 9 to get through that, to get back to the top of the order. We feel like it's a great order depth-wise.
Okay. We'd love to pick Coach Mo's brain, at some point, have him as a guest on the pod. But after 2 years away, head coaching at Ohio State, what does he bring back? He obviously has this long tenure with the Frogs. So what experience or things did he bring from that?
From his head coaching?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, sitting in this chair is a lot different than sitting in an assistant coach's chair. Just there's a lot more decisions, a lot more things on your plate. I think part of that was, he enjoyed it. Part of it he didn't. And part of the reason he is back is that I think ultimately didn't enjoy, some of those things. And so I think he brings a different perspective back. I think the big thing for him is, he's able to be Coach Mo again, in terms of he's a ball coach, he's a baseball coach, and he's an unbelievable one at that. And I think him being back and focusing on the hitters and doing the defense, I think it's right back into his comfort level, and I know he's super happy to be back and being back in the purple again.
How's the adjustment been for the players?
Well, it's been the
Coach
first
Bruce.
couple weeks, like in the meetings, them listening to Coach Mo, talk about different things, random things. They didn't know what to do or how to take them. Like he'd be like joking around, having a good time, and they would be like, "Is he serious now, or is he joking?" You know what I mean? Because his voice is always loud, and so he'll break down some things, and they're looking at each other, going, "Is this supposed to be? Are we supposed to be laughing?" So it took him about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a month, to figure out like, Coach Mo's really funny, and we're gonna have a good time, but he's gonna hold you accountable, and he's gonna ask you to do a lot of things, and but there's gonna be some times that it's pretty hilarious, and so they've now adjusted, I think, to his personality of who he is as a coach. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
For us, just watching at Lupton or watching on TV when you guys are away, what will be some noticeable differences? And on top of that, while I'm asking, you're taking in an additional role with the pitching staff. So same question there. What will we be able to see from our vantage point that's noticeably different?
I think you're going to see a group that's pretty patient. I think they're not going to be afraid to hit with 2 strikes. I think it's going to be a lot more. I just think it's going to be more patient. It's going to be more selective aggressiveness is what I like to call it. And that's always been the case. And the base running is always going to be aggressive. And I think on the pitching side of things, you're not going to see a whole lot different. I think, for me, taking a year away in terms of calling pitches, I was still in the, still helping out with the pitching, but just not as involved day to day. And now this year I'm a little bit more involved, obviously, and doing that again. And I think I'm excited. I got bored last year in terms of not doing it. And I got to become a head coach because I was a pitching coach. And so I need to get back to what I was doing. So I think it's kind of full circle in terms of the way Mo and I kind of did this thing for 8 or 9 years together, and I'm really excited for everybody to be able to watch TCU baseball again this year.
Mm-hmm. Breaking down this team on our end, obviously your philosophy of changing lineups and testing stuff out early in the season is going to continue. It sounds like there's a ton of players who are going to bounce around and different positions. But we touched on this last year. But do you kind of have a goal in mind of at what point are you done testing, and you want to have, hey, you know what? It's not the same lineup every single game, but it's more consistent and it's more predictable. If that makes sense.
When the players decide that they want to have a consistent lineup, we'll have a consistent lineup.
Okay.
Where are we at right now with that?
I don't try new things because we're scoring 9 runs a game. I try new things when we're not, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
sure. So are there some specific position battles? I know you said everybody's, role is up for grabs at any time, but where will we see the most, I guess, fluidity in the lineup right now? Any specific positions, or is it just all kind of up for grabs for the most part?
I think the outfield's pretty set, with Myers and Brunson and Stroh-Snyder.
Okay.
But you'll see other guys out there, in terms of, 2 of those guys are left-handed. So you might see, a different left fielder occasionally. But on the infield, I think, there's been some guy like Colton Griffin has done a great job this fall or this spring since we've been back. He's probably the best base stealer that we've had, like pure base stealer that we've had in a really long time.
Nice.
I think Mo even said to me that he is the best, in most time here. So the big thing for him, it's like, he's done a really good job with his approach, and he's forced our hand in. Okay, where are we going to play this guy? And so he's gonna play a lot. He's gonna play a lot early. Silva obviously at short. I think the most fluidity is kind of that. First, second, third, like they could be different all the time just based on matchups. And who's DHing and who's, is Franco going to DH? When is he going to pitch? And so I think that part of it, Silva's got it figured out at short. And I think it's kind of the other pieces on the infield that we feel really good about mixing and matching and until someone really takes hold of it and says, this is my position. And then we'll kind of piece it all together after that.
We've got a couple dual threat freshmen coming in. You mentioned Noah Franco, Trevor Baumler's another one.
Yep.
And then you also mentioned Stroh-Snyder in the outfield. What's a successful year for these highly touted freshmen in your eyes? Maybe something different than we would expect as fans.
Yeah, I think, for them, it's being a two-way guy is tough. Being a two-way guy is really hard because half the time you're with the pitchers, half the time you're with position players, and you miss things when you're with the other group. And then on top of that, jumping from high school baseball to college baseball is a jump in and of itself. And then when you ask a guy to do both, it makes it really difficult. So I think for them, just for them to be in character as much as they possibly can, what that looks like from a production standpoint, not sure yet. I think there's we think we know what we're going to get from a production standpoint, but ultimately it's how are they going to handle the failures really, because they've had a ton of success their whole life, but they'll have more failures here at the collegiate level than they ever had. So how do they deal with those? And how do they deal with being in those little valleys and try to stay a little bit more even keel in the middle? And so that's success for me. For them is for them to be as consistent as they possibly can be on both sides of the ball. They'll have their peaks, but they'll also have their valleys. How consistent can they be? And through a 56-game schedule.
For Baumler and for Franco, what is the pitching plan for them? Like, how fast are they going to work in and get additional innings? Is it going to be on the slower side or diving right in?
Baumler will start one of the weekend games this weekend. Okay. And then Franco will be he had a little hiccup in terms of his he had a little stiffness in his shoulder, so he's kind of behind a little bit, but I can see him getting some relief innings this weekend as well. Our depth is going to be tested super fast on the pitching side of things, 4 games in 4 days,
right?
And then also having a couple injuries. So, we're going to be tested real fast, which is I'm excited for. That's why we did it.
Yeah. What can you tell us about guys like Klecker and Abelt as far as the injury side goes?
Yeah, Klecker won't throw this weekend. Neither will Ben. Klecker had a little oblique injury, and Ben's dealing with a little kind of a forearm stiffness. So yeah, neither of both those guys will go because they bring a ton of value even if they're not pitching. They're going to bring a ton of value to our dugout and to the young pitchers. So both those guys will be there, but neither of them will throw.
Okay. So I'm going to list off some of the transfers that are coming in and just kind of open the floor if you want to highlight, one of them. So we've got Cole Kramer from Washington State, infielder. Isaac Cadena, kind of like a utility guy. Sounds like he's going to play multiple positions from Ohio State. Infielder Preston Gamster from Paris College. Jack Bell from A&M, and then pitcher Tommy Lepore, which we're hoping to see him too. Anybody that we should be interested in?
All of them, because okay. you rattled off. I think if you look at each one of those guys, with the exception of Gamster, the junior college transfer, they're all sophomores, right? Lepore's a sophomore, Griffin's a sophomore, Cadena's a sophomore, Bell's a sophomore. So they're all sophomores, and we did that kind of a little bit by design. Also because we thought they were great players, but also we wanted them for 2 years. And we feel great about every single one of those guys that you named. They're all going to play. They're all going to have significant roles. So part of being a sophomore, and they're freshmen here, but sophomores in college. So, they've been through a college baseball season. They know what to expect. So it's kind of like getting a freshman in terms of the newness and the way we do things, but somebody that's already done it for a year. So we feel great about all those guys being able to help. We're going to need them. We're going to need them. We have a great freshman class, but we also have those transfers that are going to give us a big shot in the arm.
So sticking with Lepore for a second. So obviously no Klecker, no A-Belt this weekend. You mentioned Baumler's going to start a game.
Are you trying to piece together my rotation?
Yes. Yeah. What's the rotation this weekend?
So here's the thing. Last year, you just gave it to us, and we were not expecting it. I don't know if you remember
that. So now you're tiptoeing around wondering if I'm going to do the same.
No. Okay. What's the rotation this weekend?
Actually, I'm waiting to hear back from San Diego's coach and to trade rotation. So I'm not going to say mine until he says his.
Fair enough.
I'll tweet him and see if he wants to respond.
Yeah. Well, he already has one guy. Baumler will throw a game.
Yeah.
Parker will probably throw a game. Lepore probably will throw a game. So there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Just name all 7 guys.
What's that?
Name all 7 guys. They can start a game.
Yeah. Have them in the film room all night.
That's right. Yeah, they'll be prepared. I think, the big thing is just early on. It's pitch counts and 4 games in a row. It'll be a lot of fun a lot of people that haven't pitched for TCU baseball will get their first appearance pretty quickly.
Hey, Coach, just real quick so transfers out. We had a few last year. What is the conversation like? Like, how much can you tell us about what goes on behind the scenes when a guy transfers out? Is it different for each guy, or
it's
is
different?
It more
some guys
wanting to play, or
some guys, you're surprised with Ryder and Maxwell. Other guys you're not as surprised. Hey, coach, I need to play. I'm not getting my opportunities here. And, you support those guys because a lot of it's a back and forth. It's kind of, you both know what's going on. Like, hey, you didn't play a lot this year. We have another class coming in. I'm not sure how much you're going to play next year. Would love to have you back. But if you decide to go in a different direction, we wish you the best and we're going to help you as much as we can. And then some guy, Ryder Robinson was homesick, wanted to get back to Utah. So you kind of understand that. And, Maxwell was looking to go do something different in a different conference. So, a lot of times those things they're not out of left field, if that makes sense. You kind of know what's happening. And it's a lot of times it's to benefit 99% of the time it's to benefit the athlete. Sure. And there's certain times like before the transfer portal, like Jared Janzak after his freshman year, hey, Jared, you didn't pitch this year. I'm not sure what your role is going to be next year. We have bringing guys in. Is it a time maybe to look somewhere else? And he goes, Coach, I'm going to come back. And not only am I going to come back, I'm going to be a starting pitcher and I'll be your best pitcher. And we were like, awesome. Can't wait to see it. And he did it. So a lot of times it's it's just an honest conversation where you stand in the program and what it looks like for the upcoming season, and they make a lot of decisions based on that.
Okay.
You've touched on the big freshman class that's coming in. Were there any surprises as far as certain guys getting to campus that maybe you weren't expecting?
Well, I think there's 5 guys or so that we were kind of concerned with. Traeger, Baumler, Brassfield, Franco. Who else am I missing? Missing someone else, I feel like. Oh, Stroh-Snyder. So there's 5. And then we had, actually we had 6 with Larson, the one that signed. And so I always felt going into it, if we got 3 of the 6, I'd be fired up. If we got 4, unbelievable, and we got 5. And so what that does is it doesn't guarantee you anything, but you feel a little bit better in terms of building around that for the next couple of years. And actually the guy that signed it already blew out in professional baseball, so he's having Tommy John, or he might have just had it already. So, it's I don't think I was surprised with any one individual, but I think I was a little bit surprised in terms of getting 5 out of the 6.
It's kind of nice for us as fans seeing the tide shifting towards high school kids coming to college versus going pro. Makes it
definitely.
Fun for us.
It's fun for us too.
We've got some fun non-conference series coming up. Obviously, San Diego, they're expected to do well. Southern Miss, always a perennial contender. We've got Fresno State and one game at Arkansas versus Arkansas at Globe Life. Obviously each team is turning over so much. So without giving away state secrets here, what time are you spending scouting that other team, or are you just really preparing your squad?
Well, I would say, Coach Mo, Coach Lon, Coach Silverman, Mo, Coach DeLara, we've all spent time watching video on San Diego. Mo's watching all their pitchers. Coach Lon and I are watching all their hitters. And then Coach DeLara and Coach Silverman are doing some special kind of scouting report things on their whole team as well. So we spend quite a bit of time. You always want to go into it with as much preparation as possible. They have a lot of turnover. So, when we're watching video on their hitters, we probably only have 5 hitters to watch because they have a ton of freshmen and a ton of transfers. Mm-hmm. Same thing on the pitching side. So as the season goes on, you get more and more information because those teams have obviously played this year. And you spend, you want to watch previous years, but there can be a lot of things that change from year to year. So, but yeah, we do. We spend quite a bit of time going over scouting reports and watching the opponent. And we don't really bring it to the team per se. Like, I'm not going to sit down and have our pitchers watch all their hitters, but we will kind of give the pitchers and the position players an overview of how they like to play offense. This team really likes to manufacture runs. They're going to use hit and run a lot. They're going to bunt a lot. So they kind of have a general feel of the way that the style of play that team will play with. And then from the opponent's pitching standpoint, our position players will watch that day's starting pitcher on game day, and then also some of their key relievers. So they have a kind of a visual of what that guy's stuff is, what his release point is, what his out pitch is going into the game. So we feel we don't want to give them too much information where they feel a little bit paralyzed because they're thinking of all the information. We want to give them just enough information so that they feel like they know exactly how that opponent is going to go after them.
Well, Coach, I have to give you one more thing to prepare for this week. I know it's busy, but this is important. So last year when we did this pod, we talked about Martin was in Morgantown 2 years ago for that series. Okay. Well, last season, Martin was in Cincinnati.
So Martin's not going. You're not going to San Diego, are you, Martin?
I am.
You can watch from up on the hill. You're not allowed in the stadium. I'm gonna put a large picture of your face by where the entrance, and I'll just say that I don't know, maybe that you've had a little trouble with the law and you're not allowed in or something.
So maybe, Coach, if you want to address the team ahead of this weekend.
Yeah.
I'll be right behind you wearing a fake mustache.
Yeah. You need to maybe like go kill a chicken or something.
So speaking of last year's pod,
yeah.
Coach, I re-listened just to see if there was anything to follow up on, and I did find this. Last year, you predicted Curtis Byrne would have 3 stolen bases. Do you know how many he had? He had 2.
He had 2. Yeah.
He did it. He attempted 3, but he only stole 2. So we're a little short. Any other hot predictions for this year?
I was 0 for 1 on that, and I think I might have said that we were going to hit a bunch of homers too, and that was. So I'm not in the guessing business preseason anymore.
Is there a particular conference series that you're looking forward to? Obviously, with some new teams that we're facing this year.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I think for not only us but for Frog fans in terms of going to Tucson, going to Utah, going to some places that we haven't been before. I know back in the day, I think Utah and us maybe. No, I don't think we were ever in the same. Yeah, we were in the same conference, right? Way back in the day.
West.
So I think some Frog fans have been to Utah before, but they're actually building a brand new stadium on campus. It won't be done this year, but they play in the AAA ballpark right now. But next time we go up there, it'll be an on-campus ballpark, which will be fun. So I think all of our series or our conference opponents. No, we haven't been to Orlando to play UCF before, so that'll be fun to go back there. So there's a lot of intriguing contests on the road for sure.
Saturday night against Arkansas, Globe Life will be rocking.
Yeah, and hopefully we try to get as many people in purple as they'll have in red. They travel obviously really well, and they have a lot of fans and alumni in the Metroplex. So that'll be a fun weekend with Michigan, Arkansas, and Kansas State. We don't play Kansas State in conference this year, so we'll play that. We'll play those guys in Globe Life. But those will be 3 great opponents, and looking forward to that weekend for sure.
Southern Miss is probably the one I'm most excited about personally.
And that's our first home series too.
They're good. They're really good. They're I've said this a couple different times, but everybody knows DBU around here. Some people might not know Southern Miss, but of the non-Power 4 conference teams, Southern Miss and DBU, and San Diego, to be honest with you, all 3 of those programs right there are within the top 5 of non-Power 4 schools. And, every single year in a regional, most of the time in a super regional. So we'll have our hands full for sure, in the 3rd weekend as well. I mean, really our whole non-conference, our whole season, it just seems like with the transfer portal and the NIL that it just seems like there's talent everywhere. And there really isn't a game anymore where you feel like, that you just show up and win. I mean, it's everybody. There's a lot of parity in college baseball right now.
Hey, Coach, I need to backtrack a little bit. I do have one more question about personnel. When we previewed the lineup last week, we felt like we had a decent idea of who would mostly play where and in what roles.
Okay.
We could be dead wrong, but at least we felt good about it. But the one guy we kind of struggled with was.
Did you
Brody
hear that,
Green.
Jacob? He wants to hear our lineup.
I did.
Yeah, I got it. I'd love to hear your lineup.
I bet.
All right, I can do that. Give me 1 second. But just real quick, the one guy we had trouble with was Brody Green. What's the plan for him as far as getting playing time and where? And
well, he's got to get healthy.
I was going to ask about that too.
Yeah, he hasn't played in a scrimmage since we've been back. So he's still coming back from his hip surgery, and so it's going to be a minute for him.
Okay. Let me pull this up real quick.
I'm going to let them work on their lineups real quick. I'll follow up with another question, kind of big picture. So new AD, Mike Buddy, professional. Oh, there we go. Why don't we just go on to this?
Yeah, hold that thought in.
Well, I'm just going to tell you right now that you're pretty close.
There you go. We'll take it.
Now we understand too. There's going to be some. This isn't like set in stone where these guys are going to play. They're going to
move around. It depends if you're facing right or facing left.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of you're pretty solid. Not too
All right.
bad.
Cool.
We'll keep the official unofficial on the top then. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
There you go.
Official, unofficial. Yep. Okay. All right. And
So-
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, we love the fact that Mike had obviously a baseball background. I think that was, I don't know if that was a bonus, what they were looking for, but it certainly was awesome. Professional experience. And then, just having that eye for, keeping the sport. One of the big ones, one of the big three at TCU. So any specific conversations you're able to share about kind of like the next phase for Frog baseball?
I know it's very important on his to-do list. I can tell you that, which is awesome. What does that look like? Not sure. When is that? Not sure. But I know that's very high in his list, which is music to my ears and fired up. Yeah, he's been awesome. Got to hang out with him a couple times and obviously talked and texted with him multiple times. So I think as the Frog family and TCU get to know and meet and hang out with them, I think everyone's going to be just as excited as I am.
I should have looked up obviously the age differences, but did you guys ever cross paths anywhere, like playing?
I think maybe at some point. I think maybe when he was with the Brewers and I was with the Astros. Maybe, I'm not quite sure. I haven't actually looked it up either to see if we crossed paths. I think he might have finished right about when I was kind of started. I'm not sure, so I haven't really looked it up. Don't hold me to that.
Yep. Jacob Martin.
Could you strike him out?
Well, he was a pitcher.
Oh, he was. Oh,
So that'd be
okay.
hard to do.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that shows how much I
Maybe-
followed his career.
Yeah,
Maybe you did strike him out. You were both playing in the National League.
yeah, that's
That's
true.
true.
So you talked about Abel's not going to pitch. Even with him moving to the rotation, you would need a new closer this year. Are you going to go by committee, or like depending on the situation or the vibes, or do you have somebody set in that role?
No, I think we'll do it by committee. I think you think of TCU teams, there's always kind of a back end guy that shuts it down that everybody knows is the closer. I think with this group, there's a couple guys that could kind of, mature into that role. But currently, right now, we don't really have the guy per se that we want. That the Ben Abelt or whoever it may be. So we'll figure that out as it goes. But I think there's the option of being able to have quite a few guys that you feel comfortable with doing it. Then you're gonna be able to have. Maybe there's gonna be some times too when you give the ball to a guy in the sixth inning and you say, go finish it. We feel like there's a couple guys too that has some length to be able to finish games and not, turn it over to somebody else. But we'll, that's what a lot of the preseason stuff is for, is figuring out. We did a lot of scrimmages where we put guys in some situations, and try to simulate that as much as we can. And so you get a little bit of insight into that, but ultimately it comes down to, I think we'll know who our 2 or 3 guys are entering conference play.
Okay. Well, we're going to close up, Coach. We don't usually do this, but we've got one listener submitted question. Thought it'd be a good way to end the pod today. If you were going to rank yourself in the among the entire Saarloos family, why are you number 2 behind Keith?
So obviously your one listener is Keith. Well, I mean, I am wearing his logo, so I guess that's why I would rank myself behind Keith. But but then we go on the golf course and he falls right behind me, and so there's a lot of different things. But I think his, there's a lot of things he ranks ahead of me, and I rank ahead of him on some things. So it's a very good brotherly rivalry for sure.
Well, I just became part of the family after our visit out there in the summer. So I love getting those quarterly shipments. It's pretty awesome.
Love that. I'm sure I'm going to get a call from Keith here shortly.
Coach, thanks again for your time. Yeah, really appreciate it. And I guess Martin will see you in San Diego if he can see again.
No, I'll figure something out to undo the bad mojo that you bring, Martin. But I can't wait to see you guys at Lupton and fired up. Thanks for all your support and backing us, and looking forward to a great season.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Coach. We really look forward to this every year. So
You guys.
go Frogs.
Go Frogs.
Frogs.
All right.